of moral superiority. And that's my take on Begum's Fortune. You can disagree. The next significant dystopian novel is The Republic of the Future, A Socialist Reality by Anna Bowman Dodd. Written, published in 1887. Now, in this book, New York City is destroyed around the year 1900. And it's rebuilt into a socialist ideal. And Henry George is enshrined as their the liberator. So this is really kind of a satirical book that aims to poke holes in what she considers utopian ideals of certain political snake charmers, if you will. Henry George is best known for a book called Progress and Poverty. Very popular, sold several million copies. Not sure when it was written, but before 1887, that's for sure. The publication of Progress and Poverty is often used as a date by some people as the dawn, the beginning point of the American progressive movement, which reached a peak in the 1920s and declined and seemed, hopefully, to disappear. The ideas on eugenics and things like that, it was so tainted with it that, you know, once they saw the Hitler rise and fall, progressivism just kind of went under a rock for another 3 or 4, 5 decades. 4, 5 decades. And then they try to call it something else. Dodd's primary targets are the innovations that the utopians of her era were promoting. Socialism, feminism, technological progress. Her character is Wolfgang, and he's Swedish. Well, Sweden, in this book, Sweden has retained capitalism. And it's New York that's socialist. So Wolfgang is visiting, and he's writing letters home from the year 2050. He describes this New York future as dreary, drab, conformist. Everyone lives in little cookie-cutter houses that all look the same. Everyone pays the same rent. Everyone wears the same kind of clothes. It all look just exactly the same. Benefits, people work only 2 hours a day. Just work 2 hours a day. But without a profit incentive or any will to achieve anything, life has become very, very dull, drab, gray, boring. Travel is forbidden. Mediocrity is enforced by law. Scholars, authors, scientists, anybody that tests a little above average, exiled. If you're above average, you got to get out. We got to make everyone the same. This is the first book, I think, that where this communist socialist equality idea of sameness really comes out. This dull, flat, Kurt Vonnegut did a good job with it, but this concept of sameness, of you have to hurt the people who excel. Socialism is not just about means of production, but a socialist future will bring sameness. And it's not too far off from Jules Verne's first book, in which love dies, virtue dies. When there's no incentive, when there's no heart to keep life moving forward, even if it's in competitive way, what is life? What is humanity? Just kind of disappears. So her basic main theme is technology can make things worse instead of better, and that's not so far different from the Luddites, although what you would call her probably a conservative by today's standards. She's not advocating breaking things like a Marxist would, but still the same the same idea. Technology doesn't necessarily improve. Technology doesn't necessarily improve things. I'm not sure if there's so much skepticism about progress, or whether or not they're just snake charmers. There's, any concept of, maybe it's just skepticism. We're not sure that this is, we're not convinced that this is going to make our lives better. And some things have and some things haven't, and we'll see later in other series about, as dystopian novels develop, how different aspects of technology do come to fruition, and then how do we take that forward from there. But there's probably going to be a short series that's going to cover a lot of that stuff. We can't do it all. Interestingly, Anna Bowman Dodd writes as a woman, but she does not advocate any part of a feminist future at all. Not in this book at all. The next book, I think, that kind of rounds out the 19th century is Pictures of a Socialist Future by Eugen Richter. Eugen Richter was a member of German Parliament. He was a member of the Reichstag. He hated government expenditure. He didn't want, he would not vote for anything that was going to cost the government any money. And ultimately, later in life, he was decades in Parliament, but Reichstag. But he became kind of known. He became kind of a joke later on for his adamant refusal to, Now, you understand, Bismarck was involved with Krupp, and Bismarck is Chancellor of Germany, and working very closely now with Eugene. The links here are, they're not that far apart. So Bismarck is well known to Eugen Richter, and Eugen Richter is writing negative things in this book about the social programs that Bismarck wants to pay for, that he learned from Krupp at the Krupp Works. Okay? Pictures of a Socialist Future is written kind of like a satire. It's an advocate. It's an advocate of the government that's been created, who begins to see, he's described, it's like a diary. He sees what is going on and where the failures are and what horrors he's wrought. But he begins by applauding government, redistribution of wealth, use of force to prevent immigration, reassignment of people to new tasks. And all the while, he's seeing what's going wrong, but he continues to speak the praises of this idea, as if the truth of what is happening isn't real. He cannot accept. This is an interesting introduction of pragmatism into dystopian novel, because a pragmatist wants what works, but an idealist, a socialist idealist, they want it to work so bad, and maybe they're noble goals. But if it's not working, to be an actual pragmatist, you have to stop and do something different. You have to admit when it's a failure. That's the thing that's the thing that most socialists don't get. Anyway, this character is so loyal to his cause. He's just blind to what's going on. What we do in the name of progress and equality. Through the book, the reader gets to experience the horror and also see the lengths that an ideological adherent will go to still sell their idea, knowing that it's failing in all possible ways. So Richter saw that under socialism, that the economy would be decimated, families would be destroyed, population would grow poor, there would be less incentive, there would be less production, and then there would be less money to provide the social benefits was supposed to provide in the first place. Okay, so issues, themes and issues from 19th century dystopian novels. Racism and superiority, nationalism, colonialism, empire, and militarism. Human nature in terms of work, poverty, and identity in terms of the shift from agrarian to an industrial world. Raw materials, jobs, wealth, economy. How does it work? I don't know. No one knows. Maybe no one knows. What if no one knows? Social issues and the purpose of the state to create or not create culture. And simply contrasting the utopian, glittery, glowy promises of utopians of all kinds. Primarily, but not exclusively, dystopian novels attempt to contrast real life with political and economic promises of utopians in a changing world. Socialism and communism were developing in the 19th century in Europe as alternatives to empire and monarchy. Obviously, the right wing in Europe was the aristocracy and the monarchy, and the left wing was social democracy, communism, socialism. As the empires come apart and nations are developed in independent, separate nations, how are they going to find their identity and set their social policy? Somewhere in between the right and the left, which is aristocracy and total leveled, heartless, soulless communism. The new industrial worker was being removed from the land and became increasingly dependent upon a new industrial aristocracy. And Karl Marx introducing the idea of the Hegelian Dialectic as a call forward. A philosophy of truth becomes a call forward. The Hegelian Dialectic is very simple, every idea is a thesis. Every thesis has an opposite or a dark side or whatever you want to call it. Every thesis produces its own antithesis. And they wage a war, and the result is a synthesis. So thesis, antithesis, synthesis. So I call it synthetic truth. That's what it is. It's not that there's a universal truth, but there's a synthetic truth, and it's always in between, somewhere in between the thesis and the antithesis. Okay, now this is the reason that Marx calls this a call forward is because he's used the philosophy itself to radicalize people. The antithesis can kind of be whatever you make it. If you say, let's say the thesis is white, and the antithesis is, light and dark. Let's say light, dark. Okay, but if I want to bring it my way, if I want to bring truth my way, we're gonna have to come to a synthesis in the middle somewhere. So for me to bring the truth my way, I say really, really, really dark. Okay, and then you have to say really, 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 really light, and then I say way, 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 way darker than that. Dark, 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 and it just becomes radicalism. It becomes radicalized because it increases always you're leading. This is what progressive means, is you are using a dialectic to direct truth into your direction by increment. Okay, so light and dark become medium. Well, medium and dark become a little bit darker, and then dark, dark, dark becomes darker. So truth is getting led down a progressive path to something. Figure it out. So is a dystopian novel a perpetuation of the dialectic. Utopia is the thesis, dystopia is the antithesis. And then they're going to make some synthesis in between. Well, to some degree that's probably true, but not always. Sometimes a dystopian novel is just satire. And sometimes it's just true. Sometimes it's a condemnation of ideas outright. It's not a proposal necessarily of an antithesis. It's just an outright rejection of snake charmers. You know, newfangled ideas that, and on the technology side, there's probably some fear. Well, we don't know. It's whenever you're faced with change that, hey, let's take it slow. We're not sure that this is, we're not sure that this is going to be good for us. Let's take it slow. But utopians are, yay, 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 yay. Utopians have a tendency to be cheerleaders. And they have a tendency to be unrealistic. It doesn't make them bad people. Dystopians are the check. Dystopians are the check on that enthusiasm. And one of the reasons dystopian novels are so popular is because they encompass all kinds of arguments. Politics, economics, philosophy, human interaction, technology, advancements. What is human progress? What is human advancement? Is that what we're supposed to do? Can we direct it? Should government be involved in directing it? Should the free market take over? We don't know. But that's why we have books, so that we can all have different ideas and we can all discuss them around a nice, comfy, cozy fire while we're eating popcorn and playing Clue and watching Beavis and Butthead while little Kim plays in the background.